What do you think about when Karl Malone gets included on teams like this?
I like it. I mean, I think he's top 20 greatest players to play.
You think Karl Malone is? But what about his off the court stuff? You know, does that factor in at all?
I really don't know a lot of off the court stuff about Karl.
He got a 13-year-old pregnant.
These NBA greats, from Victor Wembanyama's viral takedown to Patrick Beverly reconsidering his allegiance to Karl Malone, all demanded that Malone be fired because of his personal life, which tainted his impeccable career. This is the reason the mailman's legacy is being returned to sender and deserves to die. Victor Wembanyama demands Karl Malone be imprisoned, when the NBA's official history account chose to wish Karl Malone a happy 62nd birthday on July 24th.
What? Oh no, see, that's what we not better do. Police, lock his ass up. Yes, you need to be under the jail. Like what? What you say? Yeah, arrest him immediately.
2025. They most likely anticipated the customary barrage of sentimental highlights and heart-shaped emojis. Instead, the mailman was dragged through the mud by over 2,000 responses in the comments section, which was a complete dumpster fire. However, the anonymous internet warriors typing frantically from their basement couches are not the true story here. The true story is that the 7'4" French sensation, Victor Wembanyama, a generational talent from San Antonio, decided to throw his enormous hat into the ring, despite being too young and too European to be aware of decades-old American basketball scandals. The specifics are crucial, so let's be crystal clear about what transpired here. Wembanyama did not write a beautiful essay on moral responsibility and accountability. He didn't have a press conference or send out a well-crafted statement via his delegates. No, the young celebrity just shared a video meme from a fan account that showed content creator Lil Rodney's son going crazy over the NBA's homage. In the video, a man was seen yelling in utter disbelief, and Wembanyama made no comments of his own. Not a single word, not even an emoji, just a straightforward repost that made a stronger impression than any prepared statement could. Anyone listening could clearly see the message. Instead of getting birthday wishes from the league he once ruled, this 21-year-old basketball prodigy from France, a nation where American basketball drama seldom permeates the cultural consciousness, was effectively co-signing the idea that Karl Malone belongs behind bars. Reactions to Wembanyama's audacious move flooded the internet. Fans of the Spurs quickly began making connections that probably shouldn't be made, joyfully pointing out that David Robinson, the Spurs legend himself, had once been the victim of Malone's physical abuse, and that Malone was infamous for throwing elbows during his playing career. It's unclear if Wembanyama was aware of that specific historical event or if he was merely responding to the widely reported rumors about Malone's off-court issues. But for San Antonio supporters with long memories and resentment, the timing felt almost poetic. The controversy that started it all began in 1983 when Gloria Bell, then 13 years old, was impregnated by Karl Malone.
What do you think about when Karl Malone gets included on teams like this?
I like it. I mean, I think he's top 20.
He got a 13-year-old pregnant. Timeout? You need a timeout? A 30-second?
A 20-year-old sophomore at Louisiana Tech University in violation of Louisiana law, which required consent at the age of 17. This amounted to statutory rape, a crime that could have sentenced Malone to 10 years in prison. However, Bell's family reportedly decided against filing criminal charges because they thought doing so would ruin Malone's bright basketball career and prevent him from supporting the child. Demetrius Bell, the offspring of this relationship, was drafted by the Buffalo Bills in 2008 as an NFL offensive lineman, but for the majority of his childhood and early adulthood, he had virtually no relationship with his biological father. Malone allegedly told Demetrius that it was too late for a father-son relationship and that he would have to fend for himself when they eventually met after he graduated from high school. In a devastating account of paternal abandonment, Demetrius later said that he treated the situation as though his mother had gone to the sperm bank. This sums up the emotional damage that was left behind. Malone has exhibited remarkably little regret or willingness to publicly address the matter. When the accusations came up again in 2023 under fresh scrutiny, he said, "I'm not discussing any of that backlash, dismissing the entire discussion. I'm indifferent. That's how I live. That is my private life, and I'll handle that just as I've handled everything." Well, whatever. This callous disregard for what many view as an unforgivable act has only stoked the flames beneath his damaged reputation. On social media, Wembanyama's repost received overwhelmingly positive responses. Reddit users applauded the young celebrity for having the guts to confront a topic that league officials and more seasoned players have avoided for decades.
Timeout? You need a timeout? A 30-second?
No, full.
Full?
I need a full timeout.
Twitter was inundated with memes, such as Wemby's retweet of a video that suggested Karl Malone ought to be imprisoned, along with emojis of tears, laughter, and applause. Because they could score baskets, some fans saw it as a generational shift in accountability, with younger players refusing to keep quiet about problematic figures. Wembanyama's detractors contended that he ought to concentrate on basketball and avoid getting involved in issues that existed before his birth. The resounding chorus of approval overpowered those voices. Something significant about the current NBA landscape was crystallized in that moment. The younger generation is watching, and they won't allow history to be distorted simply because someone has a Hall of Fame plaque or a statue. However, you obviously haven't seen what happened when Patrick Beverly learned the truth on his podcast if you believe that Wembanyama's silent repost was the most visceral response from an NBA player learning about Malone's past. The astounding response of Patrick Beverly to Karl Malone's sinister secret. Being the guy who says what everyone else is thinking, but lacks the guts to speak up, has been the foundation of Patrick Beverly's entire career and subsequent media presence. For 12 seasons, the former NBA guard was an annoyance to superstars, a liability on defense, and a character that could be quoted endlessly both on and off the court. Fans were therefore prepared for raw opinions and sincere responses that the polished talking heads on conventional sports networks would never dare to offer when he started the Pat Bev podcast with Roan. Nobody anticipated that Beverly would become the subject of the narrative after discovering something that rendered him utterly stunned. The incident happened when Beverly and co-host Adam Farron were conducting a fictitious all-time NBA draft in an episode that was released around August 7, 2025. The task was fairly straightforward. Choose from the greatest basketball legends to assemble the best team possible. Karl Malone was included in Beverly's starting lineup, a sign of his sincere admiration for the best players in the game. Based only on the numbers, he had placed the mailman in his personal list of the top 20 greatest players of all time. The formidable power forward, a two-time MVP, a 14-time All-Star, and a third all-time scorer with 36,928 points, formed one of the most deadly duos in basketball history with John Stockton. Ferroni then posed the question that turned everything around. Should these rankings take off-court disputes into account? Beverly acknowledged that he knew very little about Malone's life outside of basketball, in a moment of refreshing candor that would soon turn into something completely different. What came next was possibly the most sincere response ever recorded on a podcast about basketball. Ferroni disclosed the main information. A 13-year-old girl was impregnated by a 20-year-old college sophomore named Karl Malone in 1983. For good reason, the audio of Beverly's response has since gone viral. On his own show, the man actually called for a timeout. Beverly's whole attitude changed when Ferroni revealed that Malone was 20 years old at the time and that the incident happened while he was a college student in Louisiana. His eyes widened, his jaw dropped, and he fell silent for a few seconds. For Patrick Beverly, this is the same as a regular person being put into a comatose state by shocking news. Fans praised Beverly for what they thought was the only proper reaction to discovering such unsettling information as the video went viral on social media. Comments poured in, praising his response as priceless and describing it as Pat Bev's most endearing moment ever. The irony that Victor Wembanyama, a 21-year-old who grew up in France and has only played in the NBA for 2 seasons, somehow knew about Malone's decades-old scandal was not lost on observers. Lou Williams posted the video with a simple, which Beverly quickly retweeted along with his own admission. Although 37-year-old American Patrick Beverly, who has spent his entire adult life in professional basketball circles, was totally taken aback by the news. It illustrates how skillfully the NBA establishment has ignored this specific aspect of history, enabling Malone to attend All-Star weekends and receive birthday tributes without ever being held accountable. The NBA was aware of this occurrence. The Utah Jazz organization was aware of this. It was known to the media covering the league in the 1980s and 1990s. Nevertheless, everyone agreed that a man who got pregnant was still deserving of being one of the most renowned athletes in American sports history. The basis of how professional sports deal with uncomfortable facts about their biggest stars was revealed by Beverly's innocent question. Fans noted that Beverly had attended events where the mailman was treated like royalty, played in the same league where Malone was frequently honored, and watched basketball media for decades without ever coming across this information in any significant way. That sums up the protective bubble that envelops some legends, regardless of how they behave. The NBA has always been picky about which scandals it acknowledges and which it hides behind statistical successes and highlight reels. Millions of viewers were forced to face the unsettling truth that one of basketball's most well-known figures has a past that would end any modern athlete's career before it even began, when Beverly's sincere shock revealed that hypocrisy in real time. However, Malone's issues go beyond what happened in 1983. Another explosive situation involves someone who would not tolerate inappropriate behavior, and that person just so happened to be married to one of the most protective and competitive basketball players in history: Kobe Bryant's enraged altercation over Vanessa. From 2003 to 2004, the Los Angeles Lakers were expected to develop into a dynasty. Karl Malone, the Hall of Fame power forward who had spent his entire career chasing championships, Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, and Gary Payton all joined a team that could win one. This roster appeared to be unbeatable on paper. In actuality, it was a volatile mixture of interpersonal drama, rivalries, and egos that would eventually blow up in a spectacular way. However, a bomb went off behind closed doors before the team collapsed on the court, almost leading to a fight between two future Hall of Famers. This backstory is essential to comprehending Karl Malone's extreme miscalculation. He made what seemed to be a sincere friendship with Kobe Bryant when he moved to Los Angeles. Beyond just playing basketball, the two became close enough to set up playdates and even babysitting, interacting as families with their wives. Malone was seen by Kobe as an older brother figure, a mentor, and a seasoned player who could help the team navigate the demands of a championship run. This added to the devastation of what followed. The incident happened at Staples Center during a Lakers home game against the Milwaukee Bucks on November 23, 2004. Due to knee surgery, Malone was unable to attend the game. He wore civilian attire, including a cowboy hat and boots, as it seems that this is what you wear when you are going to ruin a friendship and your own reputation at the same time. Vanessa Bryant was present, and according to reports from Rob Pelinka, Kobe's agent at the time, she felt extremely uncomfortable and harassed after the encounter. When presented in order, the details are truly unsettling. According to reports, Malone asked Vanessa to sit next to him and give her a big hug, saying it would be featured on the cover of every magazine. According to reports, he asked her if she liked him and said he had a secret to share, asking her to keep it private. Malone allegedly said, "Oh, like your daddy?" when Vanessa reminded him that she was married and that he was old enough to be her father. But it wasn't until later that the remark that really went too far was made. After the game, Vanessa asked Malone's son, "Hey, cowboy, what are you hunting?" as she walked him back to him and inquired about his cowboy attire. In response, Malone reportedly said, "I'm hunting for little Mexican girls," alluding to Vanessa's ancestry. She turned and left right away. Vanessa told Kobe everything on the way home, and Kobe Bryant, the most fierce and competitive basketball player of his generation, called Karl Malone right away from his car after learning everything. The exchange was direct and heated. "Avoid coming near my wife. What's the matter? How did you do it?" Kobe conveyed the extent of his disappointment in an interview with the Los Angeles Times in December 2004. He talked about how he trusted and respected Malone, who had served as a mentor to him. He stressed that there was no misunderstanding and expressed how deeply hurt and deceived he felt by the purported acts. James Haley, however, claimed that Malone's response via his agent was predictably contemptuous. He insisted that the hunting remark was just a light-hearted answer to Vanessa's query and denied ever making a move on her. He called the whole thing a Hollywood soap opera and said he didn't want to be involved, but he apologized if anything was seen as improper. After that season, Malone left the Lakers due to the tension, and their relationship was never resolved. However, Malone's issues with rival businesses go well beyond this one instance. He made enemies in the league for his aggressive style of play, and one Hall of Fame forward wasn't hesitant to confront him head-on. Karl Malone is exposed by Dominique Wilkins as a fraud. The NBA was a completely different animal in the late 1980s and early 1990s. By today's standards, players who threw elbows would be immediately ejected and suspended for a long time. Genuine physical contact that resulted in bruises and occasionally necessitated medical attention was referred to as physical post-play. Even by the lax standards of his time, Karl Malone was able to stand out in this already harsh environment as someone who went too far. And one of the few players willing to confront him head-on was Dominique Wilkins, the legendary Atlanta Hawks player known as the human highlight reel. Wilkins himself was not a soft player. Over the course of 15 seasons, he averaged 24.8 points per game thanks to his exceptional athletic ability and relentless competitive spirit. He had no physical reason to be afraid of Karl Malone, and more significantly, he was intolerant of what he saw as cheap shots masquerading as physical play. According to reports, the altercation followed a game in which Malone had been especially combative, establishing position and intimidating opponents with devious elbows and gut punches. With most other players, what Wilkins said to Malone's face would have sparked a real fight, but the words had a deeper impact than any blow. "You're an artist of cheap shots. You're not a real power forward, nor are you a man. Every time you go out to harm someone who is smaller than you, your game is that." Wilkins went on from there. He made a negative comparison between Malone and Buck Williams, a power forward from the same era who was renowned for his clean, physical style of play. Buck Williams is a powerful forward and a man. He's powerful, he engages in gaming. "I think you're a cheap shot. There's no way around it. I have no regard for him." Wilkins made an obvious distinction. In professional basketball, being physically fit is both acceptable and even commendable. Being filthy is a completely different matter. To be honest, there is a ton of evidence to support Wilkins' assessment. Isaiah Thomas needed 40 stitches after Malone elbowed him in the head during a layup attempt in 1991, splitting his forehead open. He brutally struck David Robinson in the head in 1998, rendering him unconscious. He caused enough blood damage to Steve Nash's mouth to result in a one-game suspension. He received a $10,000 fine for rattling Brian Grant's teeth. The pattern was unmistakable and constant. Hakeem Olajuwon joined the chorus of criticism by denouncing the Malone-Stockton Jazz pretenders who pretended to play cleanly. In contrast to their positive public image, he accused them of employing elbows, harmful picks, and dubious tactics. These remarks carried a lot of weight coming from one of the most elegant players in league history. Malone is regularly ranked in the top 10 to 15 dirtiest players in NBA history in retrospective rankings. Analysts frequently point out that he and John Stockton formed one of the league's most infamously aggressive duos ever, and his elbows became notorious enough to merit their own compilation videos. Ironically, during his career, his physicality was praised as toughness, but his behavior off the court went mostly unnoticed. However, Malone's excessive aggression was observed by more than just players. Owners of the teams were also observing, and one of them made the decision that enough was enough. Leslie Alexander calls for Karl Malone to be suspended. Professional basketball players are subject to criticism from all sides. Fans jeer you. Your choices are questioned by the media. To get inside your head, opposing players use derogatory language. Drawing the wrath of a team owner, who usually stays out of the conflict and lets their staff compete, has a special significance, though. Therefore, the public criticism of Karl Malone by Houston Rockets owner Leslie Alexander during the 2004 playoffs was an escalation that went beyond typical rivalry. In this case, context is crucial. Despite being 40 years old and suffering from a number of illnesses, Malone was blatantly harassing Houston's young center, Yao Ming, during the Lakers' opening round playoff game against the Rockets. At the age of 23, the 7'6" Chinese sensation was still honing his skills and learning how to cope with the physical demands of NBA playoff basketball. With 40 years of cunning at his disposal, Malone was providing him with an education he had never requested. During Game 4, which the Lakers won in overtime, there were particular incidents that led to Alexander's reaction. While fighting for position in the fourth quarter, Malone knocked down Yao Ming. To many onlookers, this move appeared more like assault than basketball. Earlier in the same game, Rockets forward bust John Nakbar undercut Malone on a fast break with such force that Nakbar grabbed Malone's jersey to keep from falling and tore it. Ever the showman, Malone wore the ripped jersey like a badge of honor and refused to change into a new one afterward. Alexander decided to make a public statement the day before Game 5 because he had had enough. He spoke clearly and concisely. "It's just wrong the way he shoves people. It is detrimental to the game. This is detrimental to the league." Alexander specifically demanded that Malone be suspended, claiming that the league had to act because his physicality went beyond what was considered competitive to dangerous. This was not the grievance of someone who was unfamiliar with actual playoff basketball, coming from an owner who had witnessed his team win consecutive titles in 1994 and 1995. This man could tell when intense competition turned into something more repulsive. Malone's reply was quintessential Karl Malone, full of the condescending haughtiness that marked so many of his exchanges with detractors. He responded to Alexander's remarks with barely disguised disdain after finishing Game 4 with 30 points, 13 rebounds, and 3 steals. "And I adore him. I will never seek employment with him. If he came through the door, I wouldn't recognize him." For a man who had just been accused of playing dirty by a billionaire team owner, Malone appeared remarkably unaffected by the criticism. "I could care less about him, really," he continued. "I wouldn't even know what he looks like," which somehow managed to be both completely believable and utterly disrespectful at the same time. The Rockets lost that series, but Malone was able to continue his pursuit of a championship ring. However, this was consistent with his approach to every controversy throughout his career. Deny, dismiss, and move on as if nothing had happened. Naturally, he never understood. The Lakers lost to the Detroit Pistons in the championship game, and Malone retired soon after. However, Alexander's pattern of behavior, the willingness to push boundaries and injure people in order to win, extended well beyond the basketball court. Karl Malone's disrespect for others extended beyond his opponents during games, as the other items on this list show. It affected every part of his life and left wreckage that people are still dealing with decades later. The league was aware of Karl Malone's true nature throughout his whole career. Decades after his retirement, they continued to honor him as one of the greatest players in basketball history, inviting him to All-Star weekends and sharing birthday tributes on official social media accounts, despite witnessing him elbow opponents into submission game after game, season after season, and seeing the blood, stitches, and trips to the medical tent. Back in 2004, Leslie Alexander broke through the facade, pointing out what everyone else was too scared or too cooperative to recognize. The mailman was dangerous in addition to being physically strong. Whether it was a 13-year-old girl in Louisiana, a teammate's wife in Los Angeles, or opponents on the basketball court, he was filthy and didn't care who he hurt along the way. No amount of MVP awards or scoring titles will ever change Karl Malone's true legacy. Take what you want, deny any wrongdoing, and dismiss anyone who dares to question you with contempt and arrogance. Thank you for staying tuned. Please click on the card that appears on your screen if you like this and would like more of this kind of content.